Om. 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 सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। Okay. Upadesa Sara. We have completed up to verse 17 last time. So we will read and then proceed with verse 18 onwards. कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलम् कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडम् कृतिमहोदधौ पतनकारणम् फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाङ्मनः कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जप चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगत ईषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृत् देवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवाद् उच्चमन्दतः चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आद्यधारया स्तोत्रसासमम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परम् भेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमता भावशून्यस भावसुस्थितिः भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृस्थले मनः स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम् वायुरोधना लीयते मनः जालपक्षिव रोधसाधनम् चित्तवायवः चित्क्रियायुताः शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलक लयविनाशने उभयरोधने लयगतं पुनः भवति नोऽमृतम् प्राणबन्धनाल् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तना नासमेत्यदः नष्टमानसो उत्कृष्टयोगिनः कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्थितं यतः दृश्यवारितं चित्तमात्मनः चित्वदर्शनं तत्वदर्शनं मानसन्तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्ग आर्जवात्. So I think last class we covered only verse 17. Yeah. So verse 17 it talked about once you inquire on to as to what the mind is. What is the mind? Then we realize that there is nothing really called the mind. So there is a directness in this path. He says there is a directness. Marga Arjavat. Arjavat, direct. So when you start inquiry is the only way in terms of getting the knowledge, jnana. So it's a direct path. What is the direct path? Normally, any of the sadhana, we think that mind is the problem. We are told also, mind is the problem, desire is the problem. And for us to get out of the desire and subdue the mind, subdue the thoughts, that is the way we should go about in terms of sadhana and gain the moksha. That is a normal response. Here, Ramana Maharshi is telling there is nothing, no requirement at all to control the mind, improve the mind. You do that for other reasons, but for gaining moksha, really you don't require to manage the mind at all. He says, once you start inquiry as to what is this mind, where from this mind has come, the mind itself disappears. And when the mind disappears, that means that there is no problem at all. The source of the problem is removed for you. So direct path, this is, he says, is the direct path.
So previously he has talked a lot about Manonash.
True. That's what I'm telling. There are other reasons why you improve the mind. There also, he did not say that you must do a mind massage every day for you to gain the moksha. There also manonasha.
Yeah.
He's telling that you kill the mind. Here he's telling that the killing of the mind, how do you do? Is through self-inquiry.
Okay.
So this is the solution that he is giving for that killing of the mind. Okay. So that is how he is now coming out and says that when you start inquiry as to what is the mind, that is the solution for you. That mind itself disappears. See, there are 2-3 ways how the approach, we can say, 2-3 approaches that we have in terms of how the sadhana should be, etc., etc. Normally, people say that you require to go through a particular process. In Advaita Vedanta, if you go through many texts that are there available, one process which is very popular as this one, which because it is given by Shankaracharya. His way of looking at the entire sadhana process when we talk about, he says first is that you should do sadhana chatushtaya. That is the prerequisite for you. Develop these qualities and develop these attitudes and develop these mental strengths. He said that is the sadhana chatushtayam. What are they? Viveka, Vairagya, Samadhamadi Shat Sampatti. Sixfold wealth of Samadhama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. So these 6 aspects of mental mind you develop, and then you should also develop something called mumukshutvam, which is the intense desire to get liberation. Unless that is there, so here what we are telling, we are not doing any manonasha at that stage because we are not ready for that. All that is being told is you shift the focus of your desire from the worldly object to the exclusion of only Ishvara. Mumukshutvam is what? We are not killing the desire. I'm only shifting. Right now, my desires are all outward related. I desire for a good body, good mind, good intellect, good spouse, good children, good friends, good neighborhood, everything. Without any water supply cuts, I want everything to be in place for me to be happy. My desire is towards outward objects. Yeah. But here we are looking at that I'm shifting the focus of that desire from outside objects, including my body, mind, to exclusion of Ishvara. That is mumukshutva. So this is what the initial first few steps we are required to do in order to gain the knowledge. And once your mind is in a stage where it can start listening, etc., 3 more steps are given by Shankaracharya, who says that Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasa. We have heard this many, many times before. Yeah, Shravana is understanding what the Shastras are telling, what is the core meaning, core topic of Upanishads. That itself is so difficult because it talks about many things. Every Upanishad gives you a huge terms in terms of how the process creation has come about, what all things we should do, how the person's mind should be, importance of Satyam. We have gone through that in this one. So it talks about many things. So Shravana, Shankaracharya says, is once you know that Aham Brahmasmi is the core topic of any Upanishad, then your Shravana is complete. As long as you are confused and you go from one Upanishad to the other Upanishad, only understanding as to how the creation has come, etc., Shravana is not complete as per him. Yeah. Second is Mananam. Mananam is, okay, now Aham Brahmasmi is the core topic I know, but I don't feel that Aham Brahmasmi is the right this one's, because how can that Brahman be a Jiva who is me? A limited being, an infinite Ishvara, they are trying to equate. How is that? Then Mananam is required to understand the nature of Ishvara. How that nature of Ishvara and me can be equal is Mananam. Yeah. And once these two are over, still that doesn't take out my option of my problem of understanding this and individualizing that Aham Brahmasmi. That requires Nididhyasana. Once you go through this, you will reach a, we can say, stage of Turiyam, where you recognize that Aham Brahmasmi aspect of this one. Recognize means individually you say that I-ness, that Ishvara is not an object like outside. Ishvara is nothing but me. That aham feeling will come into picture. This is the general way that is given. Now, Ramana Maharshi is giving a very simple way. He's telling all this requires in terms of managing your mind. Whether we talk about Samadhamadishat Sampatti, etc., all this is having this type of this one. Don't go through all that. No requirement for you to read any Upanishad. Not that you stop attending class, okay? But generally, we attend no requirement for doing all that. You have to do, what you have to do is to Manonasha. And to do Manonasha, what you do the inquiry. This is the direct path. Yeah.
In a way, is that not Nididhyasana? He's just jumping all the steps and
Nididhyasanam can be a bit more in terms of, because it is based on Shravana Manana. Question is it not Nididhyasanam? What is being told here? That requires Shravana Manana for that Nididhyasana to happen, to overcome that feeling of this cannot be true, this cannot be true, that might come from time to time. It is still linked to the mind and the Manana and Shravana. So it is one progress that we are seeing there in terms of doing that. But what you say is true in that sense, that yes, it is like Nididhyasana, although the process remains slightly different from there to here. But yes, absolutely, you are right. There, what I am trying to do is, I am trying to still analyze Jiva and Ishvara in Nididhyasana to understand why I cannot be that Ishvara. Here, since the entire preparatory stage is removed, here we are analyzing only the mind. What is this mind is the only analysis that we are doing, because mind in our way is thinking of that mind is me, ahankara, mind is the thoughts, mind is the intellect. All that put together we are looking at, and I'm thinking definition of I currently is my mind. Yeah. So from ahankara, chit, intellect and mind, I am now moving to say a state that my analysis only with respect to these, not with respect to Ishvara and Jiva. Not longer bothered about that right now. Yeah. Slight difference, but yeah, it is like Nididhyasana. Manojji?
Sankar, just to clarify a few things here, because uh, when we say neti neti, nothing is permanent, also practicing that, our rag dvesh is not going away. It is still is there. So my first question is, how one can have the Nishta in Vairagya. And the other question is, where is the mind placed here? So when we are saying the Indriya is interacting with Vishay, so is it the with the help of mind or without the mind, or it is due to the Rag Dvesh and how Vairag will come? So something I'm still after Neti Neti is still the same place is there. Sorry.
Correct. Normally, we tend to mix up many stuffs, and that is where this sort of confusion will come. And you are not the only one. All of us go through and going through rather. It is a present continuous tense for all of us. So, yeah, what you say is true. You mentioned as to Nethi Nethi, you brought in Vairagya as well into this one. So what I'm trying to say is, if you go through the process of Shankaracharya, you go through all that as to what is Vairagya, what is this one, etc., etc. That is one path that we require to follow in completion. But Vairagya, again, going back to, just to answer your question, I'm going there. Otherwise, this is a diversion. Vairagya, when we talk about, it is not that I have raga dvesha and I have certain things, raga is there, and because of that desire, I am developing attachments, and to break that attachments is normally taken as vairagya, and that by itself is a process, is what indicated in the question that you asked me, as I understand. But Shankaracharya says, vairagya is not an action. Vairagya is a result. Result of what? Viveka. Moment you come back to that path of Shankaracharya, says first is Viveka. You have to follow the Viveka with everything. Viveka is what? What is existing in 3 periods of time, vis-a-vis what is not existing in 3 periods of time. Anything that is presented to your mind, you require to go through that question. And he says that one that is there in all 3 periods of time is Ishvara. That is the only reality. And anything else where it comes and goes, a temporary borrowed existence, is what is unreal. Unreal. It's not that non-existing thing, unreal. Like a snake. Snake we experience, but snake is unreal. We arrive at that by understanding that there is a past, present, and future. All 3 periods of time, whether the snake exists or doesn't exist, even in terms of analysis that we do, there snake becomes a unreal thing. So where that kind of develop that kind of a discrimination, that is the first one. Once you know that this is a temporary unreal thing I'm experiencing, automatically you will develop a vairagya towards it. That is how Shankaracharya talks about. But obviously that will not work 100%. We require also to put in efforts to develop that vairagya, right, what you point out. But that is a different way, different path that we are looking at. When we talk about Neti Neti and the mind itself, what we are looking at here, you will find this in the Ashtavakra Gita. I don't know how many of us really go through. I also don't remember many of the verses now. But I did hear Ashtavakra Gita. I think it is Guruji's only. Ashtavakra Gita was there. There, this direct path is already mentioned. So Ramana Maharshi is not the first one to say this. In Ashtavakra Gita, all that it talks about is aparakshanubhuti. Okay, Shankaracharya's aparakshanubhuti also, it is there. Para and apara. When you recognize that that existence principle is there everywhere as a substratum, and that existing principle is what I am. If I can equate this existence as existence I see outside is same as the consciousness principle I am feeling inside as I, they are one and the same. It is a direct path. Paroksha and aparoksha. Aparoksha anubhuti is more like that. That I don't require to go anywhere else to see who the Ishvara is. Ishvara is me, And that me is inside as a principle of existence. I don't require any of my senses to see as to what senses to recognize as to what Ishvara is. I don't require anything other than me to recognize me. That existing principle is there for you to experience every second. Without that experience of me, really no world exists. Ultimately, that is how the logic goes in Aparakshanubhuti or the Ashtavakra Gita. So similar option we are getting it here, really speaking. So neti neti, these are all techniques only. Yeah. We'll wait for next two verses, Manoji. If this question still remains, we will come back, because next verse actually we talk about what is how this technique can be expanded as to what is the source of my mind. So I think in the next two verses, we will get clarity on the question you have asked. Otherwise, we will revisit. Please remind.
Thank you.
Okay. In the last class, what we have seen is in Jnana Marga. So we are in Jnana Marga that we know already. Yeah. So there are different theories with respect to how to understand this universe. We have seen that there is something called Arambhavada in Nyaya philosophy, etc. The principle or the theory of creation is referred to as Arambhavada. There was something which is very different to start with, and somehow that entity resulted in the universe you are seeing here. Yeah. So that is called Arambhavada. Nyaya philosophy, for example, says what was there at the initially that was there. Not they don't say that is got created. It is there. And that is called Anu. Anu is something, the particle which cannot be split further. So right now Anu is roughly translated as atom because we thought atom cannot be split. But now atom is getting split. So we have other nucleus, electron, etc., and now quasi-particles are coming. Whatever that happens as the smallest particle which can never be divided further, that in the definition of Nyaya is the Anu. Let us, for the sake of this one, Anu is atom. Yeah, because we require special things to split that. Let us say Anu is the atom. That atom is nothing, it doesn't look like a cow. It doesn't look like a man. It doesn't look like a mountain or any of the elements. But somehow that Anu which is there transforms itself into all the varieties that we are seeing in front of us. That is Nyaya philosophy's theory of creation. So, and that is called Arambhavada. Means at the beginning there is something, it ended up being so much different. Experiential that we talk about. That is called Nyayavada, Arambhavada in Nyaya philosophy, etc. There are a few who use that particular this one. Second type of philosophy is called Parinamavada. Parinamavada comes with Sankhya philosophy, for example. So for them, he says that there was something, somehow that something got transformed into what you are seeing now. And when it got transformed, then no longer the original exists. Like a milk transformed to curd, yogurt, then that milk is gone. Now what you have is yogurt. This is how some people have done that. And then there was some questioning and answering that goes on. In India, you know how that goes, yeah? So always some new philosophy comes, it will be questioned. It will be this one. So there are two types of versions of this Parinamavada that we came about. And one is called Satkaryavada, means this is splitting. Let us not go too much into it. But Satkaryavada, I won't take any questions on this. Satkaryavada means that if suppose a pot is there which came from the clay, yeah, clay transformed itself to pot, for example. So I don't see any clay here, either in terms of how the clay, whether it is soft and things like that. It somehow transformed into a pot. One school within that thought process says pot was always there in the clay. It's not that pot was not there. But then people may say, then, but clay also has got diya. So how come it has got both are there in that? So anyway, so that type of hair splitting was done in terms of that. And one school says, asat karyavat means that karya, that is does not contain the effect. Cause does not contain the effect is one way of looking at it. Cause, effect is already there in the cause is another school of thought within that Parinamavada. Anyway, that is for if you go into analyzing those philosophy schools, we require to go into that type of understanding. When it comes to Advaita philosophy, the school that we follow, or the thought that we follow, is called as Vivartavada. Vivarta means that the karya, the effect, is not different from the karana, cause. Is not different from the karana. But karana is not is different from karya. It is to say that snake and the rope, if you take into account, existence of snake is dependent on the rope. So the rope and snake, they are not really different from the perspective of the rope, because only rope is existing, really speaking. However, when it comes to the snake, snake cannot exist without the rope. Rope can exist without the snake. That is the process that we normally think about when it comes to Vivartavad. And that actually gives a concept of that this entire creation is nothing but an appearance. So these are the terms we hear, but this concept is referred to as the Vivartavada. Okay. Now, this requires understanding of what is real, what is unreal, what is non-existing. The terms that we heard that we in the last class was Satyam, Anrutam, and Tucham. Satyam is reality which exists in all three periods of time. Anrutam is something false, means it appears for a period of time and then it goes away. So anything that is experienced partial time is what is this Anrutam, or the appearance, and Tucham is something which you never experience. Shankaracharya's horns of a rabbit. So there you don't experience, you need not analyze that. But here the problem is we experience the snake, and that is why we look at whether it is an appearance or a reality. Why we are talking about all this? Because he says when you analyze the mind, when you analyze the mind, what exactly we are analyzing is whether that is a real or unreal. It is not tucham. We are experiencing that. So how do we analyze this mind which comes and goes? What is this mind? The mind is that we experience whether it is real or unreal. Guruji in his commentary talks about this. He says this is what the analysis that we should be really looking at. Whether it is real or unreal. From perspective of Advaita Vedanta, reality is something which is present in all three periods of time, past, present, and future. And unreal is one which does not exist in all three periods of time. This is how Guruji talked about verse 17. And he said it should be noted that illusion is not real as it is experienced, but it is not totally non-existent either. So mind, when we talk about, is when we say that it is negated, neti neti, question what Manojji was asking for, is the negation is not that our experience will disappear. Negation is only a conclusion of analysis that it is not, it does not have its own reality associated for existence. That's why we give a lot of examples in terms of a bangle, or any items that are made of ornaments made of the gold. Gold is the substratum. Really speaking, gold is the substratum, and all the ornaments that we talk about, our mind does not go to the gold. When we see an ornament, although we do ask a question what it is made up of, because now we can make with 1 gram gold, etc., which looks better than the real gold. But this real gold is the substratum, but ornament takes our view away. We can't say that a bangle does not exist. It has got a name, it has got a form, it has got utility. Whereas the substratum, what the gold is based on, or that bangle is based on, is the gold. Now, bangle has got a temporary existence. As per this one, it has got a temporary existence, and once it is gone, in the name and form is taken out, utility is taken out, then it goes back to the substratum of gold. But on analysis, we say there was never a period of time when bangle really existed. What existed was only gold. You see, the bangle is only a temporary existence based on the substratum of the gold. Like that, we require to analyze the status of the mind vis-a-vis what it is based on, the substratum on which it is based on, because of which the mind exists, because of which the thoughts exist, because mind is nothing but thought. And if I don't have a consciousness principle behind, no thought can exist. Because mind is not concrete. It's a brain which is there, okay, that has got the neurons running around. But mind, whether it is part and parcel of the brain, or brain is only a instrument to sustain that thought. And thought need not be based, literally be in the mind or the brain. We don't know where the thought exists, really speaking. It can be the heart, it can be anywhere. If I'm thinking of India, my thought is there with my parents. So the mind itself does not have any physical base. It has got an existence. That is how the thought process should be. And like I conclude that bangle is not the truth, gold is the truth. Bangle has got only, in fact, bangle never existed. At any period of time, what existed is only a gold. If we are able to understand that concept, that is how Guruji says we should now think about as the mind analysis. How do we analyze this particular mind? Snake cannot be called non-existent since it is experienced, cannot be real since it is negated. So this negation, what we are looking at, is only a intellectual understanding of the concept that bangle never existed. What existed is always the gold. Similarly, we will conclude like Ashtavakra Gita or Aparakshanubhuti, existence is the only substratum. All else comes under into name, form, utility aspect. And without that base of existence and consciousness principle, Satchit, there is nothing like mind ever existing. So mind comes into being for a temporary period of time, and it goes back into existence and consciousness principle once we negate. Neti neti, when we talk about, it is this type of negation that we are looking at. We come to the conclusion that it is consciousness principle, existence principle that we talk about, that only appears as a mind for a period of time. And in fact, mind never existed. It is only the consciousness existence principle which appears to be mind for a period of time. Similarly, you can extend that to a mind principle, intellectual principle, memory principle. Everything goes back to the existence consciousness principle, which appears at a period of time out of this. You start analyzing that in those terms, you will understand what neti neti is to start with. We are not telling that bangle does not have a utility, name and form, but once we analyze, we conclude bangle is never existed, only gold existed. Because the same gold can also appear as a chain next day. That is how the thinking process is. Don't extend too much the example, then we will end up with that are also equally real, this is also equally real, etc., etc. Yeah, this is only to understand how the analysis should be done is what we are looking at in verse 17. Okay. We'll go to verse 18. Otherwise, we'll get stuck here only. All right. Vrittayastvaham vrittimashritaah vrittayastvaham vrittimashritaah vrittayo mano vidyaham
Vidyamana.
vrittayo mano vidyaham manah. So, vrittayah are the thoughts. Yeah. Tu, now, aham vrittim ashritaha. So, he is telling now that there is something called aham vritti. All the thoughts, he says, depend on this moola talampu we call, the core thought, which is the I thought. Aham vritti, depending on the I thought. Every thought we have depend on this I thought in the background. Vrittayaha manaha, thoughts in the mind. Viddihi, you may know, aham manaha, I thought is the mind. Now he is concluding, now thoughts make up the mind, as we just discussed. All thoughts depend on that I thought. Like we said, existence principle which is there, all thoughts depend upon this I thought, and therefore know the I thought to be the mind. So mind is nothing but aham vritti. Now, this is,
The ego. I thought.
he will come to that in the next verse.
Okay.
Okay. So here we are looking at, right now in the stage of analysis, see, we are thinking of multiplicity, and he is now going to reduce it to singularity to start with. And that singularity is currently it is at the stage of pramata, as I mentioned. Pramata is the I thought, small I, which makes up the ego that we are talking about. Now he is currently telling, unless your ego thought, the I thought is there in you, the mind, no other thought is possible, because everything is depending on the I thought which is there. Yeah. This is actually a very, very important tool of Advaita Vedanta. Aham vritti, idam vritti. We have gone through that during Prashna Upanishad or other texts as well. So here, Ramana Maharshi is introducing us to the principle of that aham vritti and idam vritti. The whole, in Sanskrit grammar, if you take, there are three levels of understanding the aham. First is the first person, this one, which is called aham, ahankara, I am. Yeah. There is a second person where you are, idam vritti. And there is a third person, he or she, when we talk about in grammatically. The second and third person of whether you are or he, she is, these are called as idam vritti, and first person is called aham vritti. Why this is important again? From the principles of, because I am seeing, you are also feeling that you are I am feeling you are you. You are feeling I am I, but I am feeling you as you. And if you are not in front of me, third person comes into he or she. We refer to that. So although all three are conscious entities here we are talking about, that aham principle which is there does not include even the you and he and she is how we are looking at. Why it is important? Otherwise, this individual eyes will become the millions of ahankaras we talk about. He will come to that. He wants to now say that aham vritti is purely what I feeling is there, and that I feeling which is there in common among all the principle of jiva, everything is nothing but one I. How he will come about in terms of doing that. But for currently for the verse 18, we are looking at aham from my own perspective, and everything else is idam for me. This is a similar approach of neti neti. Neti neti's approach is from the world objects to inside me. Aham idam is from me to outside. Approach is ulta. That is what we are really looking at. Neti neti, what we say this object cannot be me because I'm experiencing that object. I'm seeing the object means that should be different from the seer, and we say that then I cannot be that. Now I come back to and say that whether I'm seeing okay, but whether my eye is the me, whether it is something else. Then this is no, the mind is seeing the eye, so I cannot be me. The seer will be the mind. And then we go back and neti neti. So in the neti neti, the analysis principle is flowing from outside objects to inside me. Aham idam vritti, what being told here is always in terms of whether what I am analyzing, experiencing is aham, me, or it is something different. So it is exactly neti neti, but in the opposite direction. Does it make sense? You look.
I feel it is the same because I mean, I have studied some Sanskrit, so idam is always outside. Your idam is not me.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Tissue box is not me. Or even if this tissue box was Kalpana, for example, it's not me.
Correct.
So it's always outside idam. Aham is
me. Correct.
What is this person.
Correct.
So in that way, I think to me they are the same, but
Correct.
I don't know.
You are correct. That's what I'm also telling. Only it's a way of looking at is different in terms of the analysis that we are doing. When I'm negating, my focus is on the outside object, and I say that cannot be me. Here, the focus is whether that thing is me or whether it is not. So it is the only question of how we approach these two. Aham idam is always in terms of whether this is me. No, this cannot be me. Whereas in neti neti, my focus is on the object and say whether that is me or not. Both are exactly the same as you are mentioning. Only the analysis wise, the approach is completely opposite. That is how I'm looking at it. So here he says, Ramana Maharshi is talking about when I thought is not there, there cannot be any other thought. If I may say that I know this water bottle, know the water bottle. When we say I know the water bottle, the I is built into everything that I know. Thought is nothing but knowledge. Thought is nothing but a understanding of the objects outside. So the I-ness which is there is in every thought that I say, I becomes part and parcel of that thought. Not only it becomes part and parcel of the thought, it becomes the first thing that appears whenever a thought comes in. It is my thought. If my-ness is not there, that thought can never exist. So when you get up, the I is the first one which wakes up. Your ego is the first one which wakes up. And the I then starts looking and attaching itself, all the other thoughts it gathers over a period of the waking stage. The moment you go to deep sleep stage, where the I is not there anymore, world is not there anymore. Thoughts are not there anymore. Everything just disappears. World exists because thoughts exist. Thoughts exist because I exist.
When a person dies, then for that person who is dead,
so Sankarji, I have
1 second,
one
Manojji.
quick question on, because sometimes a little bit confusion I get when we say the existence consciousness principle, and we say that we are born due to ego or vasana. So our existence is based on our vasana. That's why we born. and that is due to ego. My question is, man or mind, the root of that is ego. What is the root of our vivek, intellect? Is it the vasana through which we born, or is the existential principle?
When we talk about, we don't distinguish between.
Sorry, I can't hear. Is it?
No, I'm okay. Others can hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Sorry.
Okay, okay. We don't distinguish between Viveka and Manaha when it comes to the mind in general we talk about. Yeah, they are one and the same. With respect to the consciousness principle behind, they are one and the same. So, can you hear me, Manoj?
Yes. Now I can hear you.
Okay, so what exactly are you talking about? Again, can you repeat that?
No, so I was thinking, if the flow of thought is mind, whereas the intellect is the demarcation between what's good or bad, the distinction.
Correct. But that I
And
don't say is thought only. So when it comes to
yeah,
this, there is no difference between intellect and manaha, because it's only the type of thoughts which we distinguish between these two. Nischayatmika buddhi is intellect, and samshayatmika buddhi is manaha. That is how they are defined. Both are thoughts only. Yeah.
and what the another question was, uh, when we explain why we born, means sometimes we that we say that's the beach shape or kind of what we are projecting outside. So, but my question is, due to ego or due to vasana, we take birth. So, is it likely due to vasana something exists? So, our existential principle is also based on some vasana, actually, the one that we are calling that is behind everything.
The ego principle that we are talking about, that normally Shastra say it is part and parcel of the Viveka. Although the Vasana itself, when we talk about, it is the very causal principle of the Jiva. But that is, there is no 100% distinction that is made as well. For example, Shankaracharya himself in Viveka Chudamani says vasanas are part and parcel of the intellectual sheath. So it moves from causal principle to the this principle depending upon what you are really referring to. So when you talk about vasanas, they are closely linked when it, especially when it comes to the rebirth process that you are talking about. That vasanas are part and parcel of the causal body, which are there, and causal body again is closely linked with karma principle. So that prarabdha karma will then bring in certain vasanas that are related to that prarabdha karma, and they become the basis for your rebirth. And but the I principle which is there exists even at that level, at the causal level, if you take it from that perspective. But the same I principle which is there, the jivatva which is there in that, it will have its own reflection once the mind and intellect gets created for that birth. Because if I am being born as a mosquito, the I-ness principle will be there. Still it will be there, but it is in collusion with the mind and intellect I get in that particular birth. So the type of memories I can hold, type of mind I have, type of thoughts I can have, the level of intellect I put that, and the I-ness principle is also associated with that. So the I has got different levels of existence, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
I think what he's asking is a little bit different. Manoj, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what he is saying seems to be a valid question, that if vasanas are what is causing the birth, So vasanas cause existence. So what is, and we say existence, consciousness, bliss. So is vasana sat?
Yeah, that's precisely what I was trying to put across in telling
Okay.
that the Sat principle is well beyond all the layers of existence you are currently experiencing. And you do experience your Vasana stage or the causal stage in your deep sleep. Okay. In your deep sleep, what you experience is the ignorance. And ignorance, causal body, is nothing but the tendencies which are there in the deep sleep stage as well. However, Sat, when we talk about the existing consciousness principle, is the Ishwaratvam, which is well beyond even this causal body. That's why causal body, you have that happiness, but because of the ignorance, the happiness is that not the real happiness, but it is only absence of the pain. That is what we experience normally. But it is the similar stage, which is called the Turiya stage when we go through the sadhana process. It is not a deep sleep state, but a similar stage. That's why this is a very subtle. We are trying to understand something beyond our intellect with using our intellect and using the words. That is where this trouble always comes in terms of understanding the causal body. And we have gone through this in our Upanishad class also. The whole idea is that the causal body is such a stage where the presence of Ishvara is experienced by you every day. Only problem is you don't know. Because of the layer of ignorance, you don't know what I'm experiencing. That's why Dayananda Saraswati clearly says, there is no lack of experience. What you don't know is only that the only problem is you don't know. Experience, every one of us experience Ishvara every day in your deep sleep, he says. But you don't know. That is what the trouble is. And to want to know, you go into deep sleep deliberately. Consciously you go into deep sleep, and that is what Samadhi state is all about. And when you do that, what you recognize is that Satchit Ananta, we are telling, is beyond, it is this. He says that it is not beyond at all, it is me. The whole experience you will get in Samadhi is that reality state, that Satchit is nothing but you. This is how it goes, thinking process. I don't know whether I answered you, Manoj.
I think it is a lot of.
Yeah, it makes sense. The simple question was small I versus the big I.
Yeah.
The vasana is inherited to both of them or not? Yeah.
From rebirth perspective, let us put it this way. Yeah, the small I has got two levels of existence. One level of existence in this birth that is there, whatever birth you are getting, whether an elephant or a man, the experience is the I-ness principle exists at your intellect level in that particular version. However, the small I does not disappear upon the death of the body. Small I still continues in your vasana stage as a causal state and comes back with when the next birth takes place. Small I is continuing, whereas the capital I is beyond the small I. Even the causal body is only a small I, if I may put it that way. Yeah, try and understand that way how Shastras are telling. Yeah. Okay. So Ramana Maharshi here, what he is telling is that I thought, or the Ahankara which is there, he will come to that. Right now he says that the mind is nothing but thoughts. Thoughts are nothing but the entire world. So the entire world has got different aspects. He is now condensing this entire world as nothing but the thoughts. What I experience in the world is nothing but in the form of a thought. If I am experiencing water outside, there is it is only in the form of a thought. If I am experiencing the presence of my spouse, it is nothing but in the form of a thought. This verse directly doesn't tell that, but what it is doing is he is condensing the entire world outside as nothing but a thought in your mind. The thought that is not there in your mind, the world does not exist, despite the fact that it may be there. I don't know there is a Timbuktu, a town somewhere, but if I come to know, it will be as a thought in my mind that Timbuktu exists. Otherwise, it may exist physically, but to me, it does not exist. So the entire world that I'm experiencing, entire experience of life itself is nothing but a thought in my mind. And these thoughts come and go, come and go. There is not a continuity of any single thought that is there. And when we talk about this thought, all this world where it exists in the form of a thought is idam, and all that idam exists because of aham. This aham idam vritti, both are vritti, he says, aham vritti and idam vritti, but the entire idam vritti exists only because of aham vritti. If even if it is there right in front of my mind, in front of my eyes, for example, if I ignore that, that thing does not exist in my mind, and it does not exist for me as such. So that is why he says that unless the I comes in, I don't observe that. For example, in the corner there is a light sitting from the time I came in. Now, only when I see that, that light is there. Otherwise, it was not there in my mind. That doesn't exist at all. And how does that light exist? Only in the form of a thought. When I saw that. And that thought, how I got it? Because there is a I principle behind. And that is why that thought exists to start with. So when I say that this entire world is there, the world exists because in the form of a thoughts, and all those thoughts put together is called mind. And that particular mind exists only because I thought exists. The aham vritti exists. And he concludes in the next verse, actually he says that I thought, that ahankara, which is there, is also because of the consciousness principle behind. He takes one step behind now. So right now he is condensing the entire world in the form of a thoughts, and now he is condensing, in fact, all those thoughts are nothing but the I thought. Because without that I thought, without that gold, none of the ornaments are possible. Similarly, without the I thought, none of these thoughts are possible. He is condensing into plurality to singularity. This aham vritti, idam vritti, we will analyze this a bit more in our next class, and then go to the next verse, which actually says that even this ahankara, the I thought, exists because of the consciousness principle, and because of that, consciousness principle is only thing that exists. All other stuff follows because of that principle of consciousness existence. Being and knowing, as they another way of putting that. Being and knowing is there everywhere in this universe. You don't require to, that being and knowing is nothing but that consciousness existing principle, which is there. Existence is being. The consciousness principle in many of our texts is known as knowledge. So the knowing principle. The knowing principle and the being principle is the responsible for this entire creation, different ahankaras we normally experience at individual levels. Everything is nothing but that principle is the conclusion that Ramana Maharshi will do in verse 19. I know these are slightly complex. This one's any Jnana Marga, for example, try to understand it words and intellect is a challenge. But Ramana Maharshi is telling this is direct. Don't go too much into analysis. Just think about gold and ornaments example, that bangle never existed. Actually, what existed is only the gold. However, experientially, bangle did exist. It has got a name, it has got a form, it has got a utility. Similarly, mind, what we talk about, appears to be there, but what exactly is there is only the principle of knowing and being, which appears temporarily, either as an intellect or as a memory or as a this one. Now that knowing and being principle, we mistake it to be our ahankara. In the next verse, he says, even ahankara exists because of this knowing and being principle, which is beyond the ahankara as well. Because ahankara also has got only a dependent existence. How do we know? In deep sleep, it drops. You don't have ahankara in your deep sleep, but you exist. This is the conceptually how the thinking process, analysis process will continue in Advaita Vedanta. I hope things will be better from after verse 19. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.